The cops union just endorsed Becerra, and Steve Hilton, the law and order candidate, is the one who's furious today. If you're just joining, California's 2026 governor's race has settled into a top two general, Democrat Xavier Becerra against Republican Steve Hilton. Coming into this week, the polling had Becerra with a big early lead, and the race was turning on one question: can Hilton turn GOP anger and anti-Sacramento messaging into a real November coalition?
And today on the California governor's race, CSLEA, CalChamber, and a Newsom dinner all hit in the same week. We're digging into whether Hilton has any institutions left. If Becerra-Hilton general election matters to you, hit follow. We'll be back on it soon.
This one comes via the California Statewide Law Enforcement Association. CSLEA, that's the California Statewide Law Enforcement Association, gave Becerra a full endorsement yesterday. And here's why I sat up. CSLEA is the kind of constituency Hilton's populist pitch was supposed to land with, well outside the labor left lane.
Right, and stack it on top of CalChamber in the same week, and you've got business and the cops union both walking over to Becerra. Either the money that used to flow to Republican governors in this state just rerouted, or this is a Becerra-specific fluke. I want to know which.
So now you have to ask, is there a single institutional bloc still publicly standing with Hilton? Becerra's adding law enforcement labor, while Hilton's still out looking for a November contrast.
And think about the turnout math. A GOP base that expected law and order alignment just watched the cops endorse the other guy. Now his base pitch clashes with his crossover pitch. That's a real problem, not just a vibe.
From Jack Oman at San Francisco Chronicle.
Republican Steve Hilton's nearly non-existent chances of becoming our state's next governor seemed to grow even dimmer this month when the California Chamber of Commerce officially endorsed Democrat Xavier Becerra.
First time in CalChamber's entire history they've backed a Democrat over a Republican for governor. Hard to write that off as a mood swing. The old Republican business pipeline in this state just rerouted. And pair it with the CSLEA endorsement we just hit. Business and law enforcement, both publicly with Becerra in the same week. So I'll ask it straight. Is there any institutional bloc still standing with Hilton? That's the kill shot for the affordability populist brand. Once the cops union and the chamber are on the other side, Hilton has to feed the GOP base without scaring off the crossover voters he still needs.
Listen to the chamber's own language. Donna Lucas said California needs a governor who works with the private sector and the legislature. In chamber speak, they're buying stability and competence. ABC7 with Jalen Preslicka.
Los Angeles, KABC. As former Fox News host Steve Hilton launches his runoff election campaign for governor of California against Democrat Xavier Becerra, Hilton isn't running away from President Donald Trump's endorsement. Instead, he says it's the only thing Democrats can attack him on.
Hilton's whole case in this ABC7 sit-down sets the 57% wrong track number against Trump's 29% approval. He's basically saying, ignore the top of my ticket. Look at the cost of living math.
And the sweetener under the $3 gas pitch is a 2020 lockdown investigation. That's the first concrete governing promise he's put on the table, and it's aimed squarely at the base, not the crossover voter.
Right, and that's the tell. Same week the cops union we just hit endorses Becerra and CalChamber crosses the aisle for him, Hilton's answer is to relitigate the pandemic. That's a candidate feeding the base because the institutions left the building.
So test the crossover theory of the case. With business and law enforcement both publicly for Becerra, what coalition does Hilton actually win November with? A lockdown probe doesn't get you a single CSLEA voter back.
And he won't run from the Trump endorsement either. He calls it the only thing Democrats can hit him on. In a state where even the cops crossed over, that stamp looks more like a drag than a shield.
This one's from Hoodline.
Governor Gavin Newsom and former U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra slipped into Tommy's Mexican restaurant on Geary Boulevard in San Francisco on Wednesday for a brief, private sit-down that quickly caught public attention. Photos showed the two men smiling and shaking hands at the longtime neighborhood spot, and both of their offices later described the meetup as a short, policy-focused exchange, even as interests swirled because Becerra is now a leading candidate to replace Newsom as governor.
A photo op at a margarita joint on Geary, but it's the first on-record scene of Newsom actively investing in his successor. Now there's a photograph behind Hilton's whole Newsom third term attack.
And look at the sequencing. Wednesday, they're shaking hands at Tommy's. Then CSLEA drops the next day. That doesn't look random. The Newsom blessing got deployed right alongside the institutional endorsements.
Both offices called it a workmanlike policy check-in: healthcare, housing, climate. The California GOP called it staged. They're both right, which is what makes it work.
Here's the read I like. Newsom handing the baton in public is a gift and a target. You can hang third term on Becerra now with a picture. The question is whether that bites in a state where Newsom's still got the apparatus behind him.
Phil Barber, writing in the Press Democrat.
Though the DOJ has declined comment, the nature of the department's fact-finding makes clear that federal prosecutors are zeroing in on financial contributions to nonprofit organizations associated with Gavin Newsom's wife, Jennifer Siebel Newsom. The contributions are known as behested payments, donations directed by an elected official or candidate for office to specific charities or governmental funds.
Here's the donor map flag from the Press Democrat piece. The group caught up in this Newsom-DOJ standoff is the Federated Indians of Graton, Rancheria, Greg Sarris's tribe, one of the bigger political spenders in the state. And the DOJ's fact-finding, per the reporting, is zeroing in on contributions to nonprofits connected to Jennifer Siebel Newsom. So, tribal gaming money is sitting right at the center of a Newsom versus Trump fight.
Right. And tribal gaming in California isn't pocket change. These are 9-figure political operations. If that alliance is live in a Newsom-Trump brawl, I want to know whether Becerra inherits it or has to renegotiate it from scratch.
Exactly. That's the thing to watch. We saw Newsom and Becerra at Tommy's on Geary just this week, with the blessing being handed over in public. But a donor relationship that's currently a federal probe headline doesn't transfer as cleanly as a dinner photo.
And Newsom framing the whole thing as Trump lawfare back on the 15th, that's a useful frame right up until the money trail runs through your successor's coalition, too.
If you're following this race, try Midterms 2026 Daily. Senate, House, and governor's race coverage every weekday, with polling moves, ad spend, and the one chart that mattered today. Find it wherever you listen to podcasts. Links to every story from today's briefing are in the show notes. So if something caught your ear, you can dig in there. That's California governor's race for today. This is a Lantern podcast.